Lloyd Austin, if you don't know who that is, like the Secretary of Defense, U.S. Secretary of Defense, black gentleman, warning not black people, but the article states black people, that black men need to be prepared for cancer screening. Instantly, alarm signals go off. And the point of discourse is to say, if you are familiar or not familiar with something like dox, astic belief systems, if you are to look up doxaxic, you will see the representation as a particular shape, right? Some diagrams will use a conical shape of multi-levels, multi-tiers, right? That represent an evolution of discourse and how you would dissect the doxaxic belief separation but congruency of a belief system. And so more than like when you think about when it seems really confusing to people, like what the fuck, like, does being a Mason have to do with anything, right? What does any sort of clandestine group have anything to do with anything? And you'll see that you're going into a particular state of mind, and the doxaxic astic method to break down systems of belief and to show sort of a complex biofeedback loop shows what's occurring. So back to Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, who is now announcing that he has cancer. And the most prevalent aspect of this is that he is announcing that he has cancer, and in his declarative statement, he's apologizing that he has cancer, and he didn't tell people that he has cancer, right, initially. So there's like that. There's always this apologetic aspect, so strange, right? But it's part of the ritual. It's part and parcel to the ritual. Apologetics are very important, right? To show that you are not, you are an authority figure. You are this, you are at this chain of command, but that you are not shining with the ego of the Godhead. Right? It's a very, like you would say, it's an area of distinction, an area of respect. But then when you see what I'm talking about from a doxastic sense, you'll see that there's a multi-tier system of reverence, and that the things that seem like they're being respectful or actually ritualistic, like that you have to go through the procession of these certain types of rituals. So Lloyd Austin, is he calling field day by through the procession of a targeted group? Now, like black people had to be more concerned and wary in the aspect of threat with COVID And when they were announcing that shit, I remember that. But now it's centered around black men, and that's what he stated. In the article, it says black people, but in from the Defense Secretary, the Secretary of Defense's words, Lloyd Austin, it's black men in specific. So is he evil? Is he aware? Is he a puppet master? And the answer is no, and partially yes, because all officials, elected officials, and those that work under and congruent to the elected offices, those who are chosen and selected, are selected based on something that acts as sort of a piezoelectrical field, right? So you have to have all the constituents, all the players, and you have to have this proximity to recreate an energetics. And that is, that's a really good example, a structural component, so that you can have an overall view from a doxastic point of view. I think I keep doxastic point of view to say, might still have it wrong, but you understand, look it up, DOX. And it's showing the breakdown and the systemology of the breakdown of beliefs, right? And the fact that this can look like a multi-tiered concept, but when you put it down, there's a conical view where it's multi-dimensional. It has multi-layers. And to be able to describe such a thing, you have to be able to think in multiple dimensions, right? And when you go through the rituals of these clandestine organizations, the same thing holds to be true. That it only appears if you're only taking something at its current value, which we've learned, all of us know that's not going to work. They put Vaseline in your ice cream at fucking 31 flavors. Or they put sawdust in your pizza at Little Caesars. There's a certain amount of bugs that are allowed, right? And it's just natural state in your oatmeal. That you're eating these things, or that there's a certain amount of eggshell crushed up, or even worse, sand crushed up into very fine, minute, little tiny pieces in certain things like protein powder. And that these little margins are things that are allowed to happen, and they put a lot of money in people's pockets that are factoring out the balance. I mean, 1 penny dispersed over tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in sales and revenue. Right? And this is where the greed factor comes in. And so you have to be able to think in such a way, in a structuralized component, that allows you to see that the pentagram itself only represents itself through a multi-tiered system, that when you begin to see the thing in the full scope, and you start to see the holographic influence of it, the projection of it, and from a more positive standpoint, perhaps, is Metatron's cube, and to think about that particular sigil or sign as to come to life, and those spheres are spinning, and that it seems to be everywhere all the time. It's part of the Fibonacci. It's part of the, the whole phi or phi sequence of events. it expresses something that's very pleasing to the eye. But then you have to ask yourself, is that good? That which seems good, that which seems to taste good, that which seems to have a balance, you're still using sacrifice and the constituents of a life-death cycle, again, through samsara, to derive the base ingredients for the pot, right? And that age-old analogy of Clotho or the three witches, right? Weaving time, or weaving or spinning the pot, turning the pot, churning the pot. How odd it's been that the witches were depicted as flying around on broomsticks long before the technology was available to do so. You could literally see people be able to do that through and by way of application, right? So like, what are we going into? And these things seem to be warnings, but more than warnings, they seem to be like sigmas. They seem to be harbingers. They seem to be checkpoints, markers of certain time signatures, of things that we have to be aware of and things that we have to look out for. So, in conclusion, Lloyd Austin, he's got cancer. He's warning other black men, you need to get screened. How much do you want to bet that this is something that is on display and is being stated? Because these people's lives, almost from a holographic sense, represent a populist, right, event that is going on by large and in large. It's almost like we, the little people, are living in this feudalistic society that you at the top tiers of this populist movement are projecting toward us. And it's like you are the luminaries to the average everyday plebeian, let's say. So Dr. John Campbell, he gets into the breakdown of the increased number of deaths that are occurring. And one that I watched fairly recently in the last couple of days just talked about specific pocketed peoples that are in a demographic zone. Like there's 100,000 extra people that have died this year since 2014, that there's really no viable reason or probable cause. But when he goes into the investigation of what these people are passing away from, when in totality, when you watch a lot of his reports and his breakdown of factual information, where he gets this information and he's going over it, like these are actual numbers, that are used for statistical data, right, from government operation. And you'll see that a lot more young people are passing away. And he highlighted on his last video that he goes, it's not 2020 or even 2021 that this is being stated. Why is it being stated? He's like, this is recent. This is 2024. And they're saying that COVID vaccines are safe. And they say it more than once. Why would you make such a statement?